The radical Islamists, they do not come from nowhere.
Whenever there is extreme poverty,
no jobs, there is no economic justice,
and hopelessness,
there are no rights, no democracy, no freedom, an absence of prospects for the youth.
This is the environment in which people turn to a faith-based existence. That is not a bad thing in itself.
The only political organized force was the Islamic, who are disciplined, who are structured, who know how to work with the grassroots organization, who help the poor with food and medical care.
But when those faith-based solutions are combined with a sense of injustice and persecution, then we create the conditions to recruit foot soldiers.
This is the way they work. When the government fails to provide for the people, they act very efficiently. And then they occupy the political arena.
There is not enough focus on preventing the formation of the ground where terrorism can find recruits. We think that development is the best weapon you have.
It's a favorite word of some and anathema to others, but at the end of the day, if we ignore the word root causes and talk about what leads to stable societies, there's no doubt that economic development, sustainable economic development, plays a very significant role.
What's the main surprising and potentially quite dangerous development last months is the weakening of the transatlantic link between Europe and the United States. That's potentially very dangerous because we need to have the rich North to be united, be very strongly united, not in the Huntington Clash of Civilizations style, but because we have our responsibilities to help the other guys to solve the wishes and connections between cream and root.
To bring, the modern technology to the third world countries so that they also have the opportunity.
How do you deal with all those millions of people trying to come to Europe, for instance? Today we try to distinguish between, the political refugees and the economic refugees, and we extend a kind of special treatment to the political and not to the economic, as if the economic was not political at the end of the day. And we all know it is. And we all know that every human being has the right to search for a better future for himself and his family.
How to create the jobs, it has always been a problem. And not to create artificial jobs.
Right.
So for Bosnia it's a big problem.
Yeah.
It's the biggest problem in Bosnia at the moment.
Yeah.
It's jobs.
Last year alone we shut down some 600 inbound industries right at the border to China. We lost them to China. 600 companies, not jobs, companies. So it's a tremendous strain on us. The average Chinese salary is 6 times lower than the average Mexican salary. We cannot compete with them. So basically what is happening is that the market has a privilege to go to places where they will get very cheap labor force. And then by doing that, they're losing consumers where they had them already. For the market, it's a net loss of 250,000 people and their families that were consumers and are no longer consumers. So it's a sort of like a paradox there.
Building up the empowerment of some of the various classes in our society, particularly at the lower rungs, to give them greater political power. That process has also been one of the major processes in India.
I was in India from 91 to 95, And I went back last year and I could see the enormous change. Like the middle class population had grown enormously.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know that the middle class population is the backbone of every nation.
If you were to get economic development where only the top levels, the sort of the richer classes were only to benefit, that makes for a very brittle society eventually.
Rich people have year by year less children and more money. And the poor people have quite the opposite, less money for more children. That at the end, I question myself all the time, how long can it last?
You have to create conditions also to invest in the well-being of the people. How many brilliant scientists or athletes or I don't know, artists, writers have we lost during so many years? Because you could not bring this bright brain to school. All this is absolutely impossible without development, unless you want to restrict this to a certain group of people, and that is not democratic, I would say.
Today, the worry about security is much, much larger than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The investment of the world in security issues or security-connected issues is tremendous, and is hampering a proper development of the economy, for instance, on the other hand.
We are pressed from the industrialized countries. And we are highly vulnerable because we are small, we are scattered, our armed forces are very small, we could say almost non-existent. So the cost to guarantee the safety for us, for foreigners, for navigation, for the airplanes is very, very high. And this has its effect on our development.
The magic, if I may call it that way, has not come about. The political strains are perhaps larger than ever. When people are asked frequently in Latin America, would you prefer to have a strong man or a dictator of sorts, a benevolent dictator that could solve your economic problems? And people say, yes, I would prefer that to democracy.
Mm.
That's a terrible, terrible sign.
Mm.
So we really need to create some international environment to accommodate the prosperity of democracy. Yeah. Otherwise, there would be tremendous reversals in so many places. And I'm not talking just about, I'm thinking about just Latin America.
Yeah.
America is a sort of dream, but not the universal solution. And of course, as it is with all the dreams, if you come close enough to the dream, you can see absolute belief that my place is the best in the world. In all the countries all around the world, this would be called extreme nationalism. But because nationalism is a dirty, politically incorrect word, it's called patriotism.